I had picked up his phone to call a cab. Mine was dead, the charger across the room, the most ordinary of circumstances. I unlocked it, his wallpaper loaded. And there, as the screen came to life, a notification slid in from the top. A name I didn't recognize, followed by a message that was only partially visible, but enough. Just enough. She asked about you again. I told her Daddy was traveling. She misses you. Come home soon. I sat very still, the kind of stillness that happens when your brain has received information that it is not yet ready to process. The phone screen went dark in my hand. The apartment was quiet. Somewhere outside, the city was going about its evening, completely indifferent to the fact that the floor had just dropped out of my world. Daddy come home soon. 4 years of marriage, 5 pregnancies, 5 losses, every appointment, every supplement, every bill. And a daughter. Somewhere with someone. Who called him Daddy? I put the phone down very carefully, like it was something that could shatter. Then I sat in the middle of my living room floor and stared at the wall for a very long time. I did not cry. Not yet. What I felt in that moment was something beyond crying. Something cold and absolute and clarifying. The feeling a system gives you right before it crashes. That last perfect moment of clarity before everything falls. I had been a cybersecurity specialist for 5 years. I knew how to find what people tried to hide. And I was about to start looking. I waited until he left for work the next morning. And then I sat down at my desk and I went to work. Not the kind of work I did at the office. A different kind, the kind I had spent 5 years training for, methodical, patient, thorough. I had always joked in brighter times that you should never lie to an ethical hacker. You will not win. I was not joking anymore. 4 days to pull every thread, trace every account, read every transaction. 4 days to build the full picture of the life Daniel had constructed behind mine. He had another family, not an old flame, not a complicated situation. A family. A woman, her name was Serena, whom he had been with, on and off, since before we met. They had a daughter together, 4 years old. She had his eyes. I found the photos. He had never stopped seeing her. Not when we started dating, not when he kissed my forehead every morning and told me I was beautiful. Not during our wedding in Dubai, not during any of the 5 times I miscarried. Not once for a single day of our marriage had he stopped. But that was not the worst of it. The finances came next. And this part made me physically ill in a way that nothing else had. Daniel did not have a job the way I thought he did. He had a title and an office and a salary, but it was a fraction of what I had assumed. The rest of his lifestyle, and hers and their daughters, had been funded primarily by one source. Me. The bills from my fertility treatments that had seemed too high. He had been inflating them, adding personal expenses, redirecting payments, pocketing the difference. The specialist referrals, the premium supplements. The private consultations he had insisted were necessary. A significant portion of those charges had never reached any clinic. They had reached his other accounts. The ones he kept under a different name. The ones that paid for Serena's apartment. He had been funneling money out of our shared accounts, steadily for years. He had convinced me to give him access to our savings under the guise of managing the medical process so I could focus on healing. He had used my salary, my security clearances, my bonuses, the emergency fund I had built from years of overnight shifts and skipped vacations, to build a life with another woman. I sat with the numbers in front of me and tried to do the math. Over 4 years, it was close to $200,000. $200,000. Quietly, methodically, lovingly extracted from the woman who was losing babies and crying herself to sleep and asking what she had done wrong. The doctors had told me that stress and financial anxiety were contributing factors to my miscarriages. I had not understood then why I was always financially anxious despite earning well. I had blamed myself, my budgeting, my spending, my lack of discipline. I had carried that shame privately, silently, on top of all the other grief. He had caused that stress deliberately, knowingly. Every inflated bill, every manipulated account, every sleepless night I had spent wondering how we were hemorrhaging money. He had been the answer, and he had looked me in the eyes every single morning and said I was beautiful, and driven me to work, and waved goodbye. I want to tell you that I raged, that I called him, screaming. That I threw things or showed up at his office, or did something that matched the scale of what had been done to me. I didn't. I went very, very quiet instead. I picked up my phone and called a lawyer. The people who showed up, Tara, came over that night. I had texted her 3 words. I need you. She was at my door in 40 minutes, still in her work clothes, a grocery bag in each hand. She did not ask what was wrong. She put the food away, made tea she knew I wouldn't drink, and sat down next to me on the couch. I told her everything. All of it. The phone notification. The 4 days of digging. the other family, the money. All of it, from beginning to end, in one long exhale that I had been holding for years without knowing it. She didn't say anything for a while. She just held my hand in that particular way she had. The way that said, "You are not alone in this," without words. Then she said, "I am going to need you to eat something. And then we're going to talk about what happens next. But first, eat." She stayed for a week. She slept in my guest room and woke up before me every morning to make sure I didn't face the day alone. She was there when I called my mother. She was there when my mother called back, which happened approximately 11 minutes after I hung up. And it was Tara who gently took the phone from my hand when my mother's voice cracked so hard it broke something in me too. My mother flew in 2 days later. She walked through my door in a way that only African mothers can, not dramatic, not loud, just enormous. Her presence filled the apartment in the way that warmth fills a room, gradually, completely. From every corner, she held me and she prayed over me in Yoruba, in English, switching between the two mid-sentence the way she did when she meant it most deeply. She didn't say much about Daniel, just once, quietly, while I was sitting at the kitchen table. "I prayed for you to have the right man, not the beautiful man, not the exciting man, the right man." God heard me. He is still working. I didn't have the energy to argue. I just let her words sit. My career took the first hit. There is only so much your brain can hold, and grief is not small. I missed deadlines I had never missed. I sat in front of screens I could not read. The algorithms I had once chased like puzzles now looked like noise. I went to my boss, the same man who had called me back from leave, who never had any shortage of things he needed from me, and I told him I needed time. He gave it to me without question, and I will always remember that. I filed for divorce. My lawyer was exceptional. She was calm and precise and completely unmoved by Daniel's attempts to negotiate, minimize, and charm his way through the proceedings. I had the documentation. I had every transaction, every redirected payment, every inflated invoice laid out like evidence in a case. Which, because I am who I am, it essentially was. The settlement took time, and it was not painless. But when it was done, it was done. He walked away with significantly less than he had planned. The universe is occasionally fair. I found a therapist. A good one, calm, precise. The kind of person who asks the right question and then waits without flinching for the real answer. I went every week. I talked. I cried in that office more times than I care to count. I learned things about myself that the grief had been covering. I learned how much I had attached my worth to becoming a mother. So much so that I had let the fear of losing that dream make me willing to overlook things I should have questioned. I learned how completely I had given someone the keys to my life under the banner of love and trust, and how I would never confuse love with surrender again. I learned that my instincts had never failed me. I had failed them. Every time my gut whispered something is wrong, I had found a reason to dismiss it. Too busy, too committed to the image, too afraid that questioning it meant losing it. I made a decision, sitting in that therapist's office on a Tuesday morning. I would never again choose comfort over clarity. I was not broken. I was being rebuilt. There is a difference slowly. The career came back. It came back stronger than before, actually in the way that things sometimes do when you have stripped away every pretense and every performance and are left with only what you are genuinely made of. I got a car, my gift to myself, paid for entirely by me, owed to no one. I moved to a new apartment, smaller, quieter, entirely mine. I started sleeping through the night again. I was not yet whole, but I was moving in the right direction. Again, it had been almost 5 years since I had last set foot in my first coffee shop. The one with the devoted staff and the inexplicable old man. After the confrontation, I had switched loyalties entirely and never looked back. But healing does strange things. It surfaces old memories, unresolved questions, pieces of the past you set down somewhere and forgot to pick back up. On a quiet morning, a genuinely good week, the kind that doesn't feel fragile, the old man crossed my mind. Not romantically, not with any agenda. Just a memory. A curiosity I had never resolved. He had said I was his soulmate. I had threatened to sue him and driven away. The loop had never closed. I was a different person than the 27-year-old who had marched up to him with the energy of someone who had never yet been truly humbled. I still had the fierceness, but the certainty had been replaced by something more nuanced. Something that understood that life is not a checklist and people are not blueprints, and love does not always fit the dimensions you've drawn for it. Marriage, I had learned at great cost, is not built from butterflies and forehead kisses and the perfect height of a man's cheekbones. It is built from character, from consistency in the dark, from what a person does when they think you are not watching. I drove to the old coffee shop. I wasn't expecting to see him. 5 years is a long time. I went inside, got my coffee, looked around. He wasn't there. I carried my cup back out to my car and sat in it for a moment, drinking slowly. Watching the street, feeling the particular mild disappointment of a question that stays unanswered, I started the car, and then, as I was pulling out of the parking lot, I saw him. He was walking along the street, a little older, but unmistakably him. And as my car passed, as our eyes met for just a moment through my windshield, he smiled that same smile. Patient, warm, steady. Like he had all the time in the world and had simply been going about his life while I had been going about mine. This time, I stopped the car. What I had refused to see I had grown since the last time I saw him. Not just older, wiser, softer in the right places, stronger in the ones that mattered. I walked up to him, and for the first time, I truly looked at him. He was not old, he had never been old. That had been my own bias, my own fear of anything that fell outside my carefully drawn picture. He was barely 40, and looking at him now with different eyes, I could see clearly what I had refused to see before. He was a good-looking man, calm and steady and completely comfortable in himself. The kind of man who does not need to perform for anyone. We talked right there on the street, with the afternoon light shifting around us. Something happened in that conversation that I didn't have a name for at the time. It felt like recognition. Not of a person I had met before, but of something true. His name was Marcus. He told me about his own marriage, a story that mirrored mine in the saddest ways. A union built on family expectation rather than genuine love. A woman who had not been honest. A chapter he had eventually had to close, at great personal cost, because staying in it was costing him who he was. He had known, he said, from the very beginning that she was not his person. But he had gone through with it because that is what you do when the people you love expect it of you. And then he told me something that stopped me completely. He said that from the first morning he saw me walk into that coffee shop, stressed and purposeful and entirely unaware of him. He had known I was his soulmate, not in a dramatic way. Not with fireworks, just a quiet, certain knowing, the kind that settles into your bones and does not leave. That was why he had smiled. Every single time. Not to unsettle me, not to be strange. Simply because, for him, seeing me was like recognizing something he had been waiting for without knowing he was waiting. I asked him what he would have done if I had never come back. He was quiet for a moment, then he said, I would have waited all my life rather than make another mistake. I did not know what to say to that, so I said nothing. I just sat with it and let it settle. Day at a time we took our time, nearly a year and a half of coffee and conversation and slow, unhurried knowing. No pressure, no performance. Just two people, both a little worn by the world, choosing each other one day at a time. He never pushed. He never rushed. He showed up, not dramatically, not with grand gestures designed to impress, but consistently, quietly, in all the ordinary ways that end up meaning everything. When I was anxious, he sat with me in it. When I mentioned things in passing, he remembered them weeks later. When I had a difficult day at work, he didn't try to fix it. He just made sure I didn't have to carry it alone. My mother met him after about 8 months. She showed up from out of state for a visit, and I told her he would be joining us for dinner. She studied him the way only my mother can study a person, thoroughly, quietly, from multiple angles over the course of an entire meal. Afterwards, she pulled me aside in the kitchen while he was getting his jacket. She didn't say much. She just took my face in both her hands and said, in Yoruba, this is the one I prayed for. And then she went to say her goodbyes. Tara's verdict delivered the following weekend over lunch. He is not flashy, he is not trying to impress you. He just loves you. You can see it. It is the most boring kind and the best kind. Boring, I said. Steady, she corrected. I said steady. When Marcus finally asked me to marry him, he did it simply, quietly. Just the two of us, no audience, no production. He said, I want to spend the rest of my life showing you what it is supposed to look like. I want to be what I promise to be every single day, not just on the days when it is easy. And then he asked, I felt something I had never felt the first time around. Peace. Not giddy, nervous excitement, though there was joy, deep and real, but a profound, grounded peace. The kind that tells you without any doubt that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. My yes was the quietest and most certain thing I have ever said. Everything I did not know to ask for our wedding was nothing like my first. No Dubai skyline, no grand destination, no performance. It was intimate and warm and full of the people who had shown up for us through the hard years. It was us standing in front of what mattered, choosing each other with our whole hearts. And what followed was everything I had not known to pray for. He was present in a way I had never experienced. Not just physically, fully, completely present. When I was anxious, he sat with me. When I cried, he did not try to fix it. He simply made sure I knew I was not alone. He did not try to be something impressive. He was just himself, entirely and without apology. and he gave me the space to be entirely myself in return. We did not talk much about children in the beginning. I had carried so much loss in that area that I needed time before I could hold the hope of it again. He never pushed. He never hinted. He simply loved me and waited and let me find my own way back to wanting. When I was ready, we tried, and this time, this miraculous, grace-filled time, it came easily, naturally, as if the universe had simply been holding it in trust, waiting for the right moment to release it into our hands. I was pregnant, with twins. Tilda, he was with me for every moment of it. When I was sick, he held my hair and brought me water and prayed over me in the quiet of early morning. When I was scared, and I was scared every single day, in a way that anyone who has lost what I lost would understand. He was scared too, and he did not pretend otherwise. He held my hand and stayed. I would look at him sometimes in those ordinary moments, him reading or cooking or just sitting quietly, and feel something so enormous I could barely contain it. Gratitude. Wonder. The specific, quiet joy of knowing that you are living the life you almost gave up on. Our daughters arrived on a Tuesday morning, and they were the most beautiful things I had ever seen. We named them Chloe and Zoe. Chloe for blooming and fertility, because she was the flowering of everything we had endured. Zoe for life, for the life of God, because she was proof that the universe had not forgotten us. Marcus held them both in his arms and he cried, not quietly, not carefully. He cried the way a man cries when something he has ached for finally arrives. With his whole chest, without embarrassment, without restraint. All he said over and over was, "This is what I have always prayed for." He kept turning to me, "Thank you, baby, 1,000 times thank you. They are so beautiful. You are so beautiful. Thank you for this life." I looked at him holding our daughters and I thought about the girl I used to be. The one with the checklist, the one who had walked past him without a second glance, the one who had been so certain she knew exactly what love was supposed to look like. I thought about everything I had to lose before I could find this, and I thought, some things cannot be prayed for correctly until you have been broken open enough to know what you truly need. But I know now this is not a fairy tale. Fairy tales are clean, and this life has not been clean. There have been miscarriages and betrayal and financial theft committed by someone who kissed my forehead every morning. There have been nights I did not think I would survive intact. There has been grief so heavy I had to learn to carry it differently, because it never fully leaves. It just changes shape. I used to think love was a checklist, age, appearance, timing, all the right boxes ticked in the right order. I have learned the hard way, as I seem to learn most things. That love is something else entirely. It is the person who waits without demanding, who sees you clearly and is not afraid of what they see, who holds your hand through the losses and does not disappear when the beautiful thing you hope for does not come easily. It is the person who cries when your daughters are born because they have wanted this. Wanted you, for longer than you even knew. If you are in the middle of your hard season, I want you to hear this. The love that is right for you will not always look the way you imagined. It may not arrive on your timeline. It may come wearing a face you almost walked past, more than once. But it will wait. The right love always waits. And when it finds you, it will feel less like fireworks and more like finally coming home.